But when I'm with the poor, it's as if, because they have nothing else, and they depend on God, we have so many backups to our backups that God is sort of a last resort. If I can't figure this out any other way, I may say a prayer. But the poor begin with that, because every day they're trying to figure out, how can I make enough money to buy a handful of rice to feed my children tonight before I go to bed? That's their objective for the day. And so I think God is very close to those people. And when we're with them and carrying their burden somehow, God is somehow with us.
That blessing just kind of rolls off over onto us.
We're blessed by them. Yeah.
Our eyes are opened, aren't we? Aren't they? Now, in your book, you open our eyes to the real life stories of the people that you have been helping through these microfinance loans. Tell us about the gentleman who built the chicken coop over the pond. I thought this was fascinating.
You may not want to eat his carp.
I'm sorry, I coughed over that. You may not want to
eat his carp.
The fish that he's growing, it just makes perfect sense, though, the way he's set this up.
So, I didn't realize this, but 20, 30 years ago, the huge cities in Indonesia were overcrowded, and so the government offered people a one-way ticket to the virgin jungles of Indonesia and said, we'll give you 2 hectares of land, we'll give you a one-way ticket, and we'll give you rice for a year. And so this gentleman that I met, he was one of the very first human beings to live there, and with his 2 hectares, he had dug fish ponds, and he had hired some people, and they diverted the stream, and they filled these fish ponds, and they were growing carp. Well, then he had to feed the carp. So then this entrepreneur that he is, he borrowed money from us again. The first time was to hire these people. The second time, he borrowed money, and he built these chicken coops just about 6 inches above the water. And so he grew all these, fed all these chickens, and they laid eggs, and their droppings would go into the water. And so the droppings from the chickens would feed the fish. And when I was there that day, he had a stack of chicken eggs about, and that was one day's take from his chickens. And I just thought, how resourceful the poor are. I mean, his total debt to us over the years was no more than a few $100s, certainly less than 500. And here he was, feeding, providing nutritious food for the people in his community, providing jobs for the people who were working on his farm, and the dignity that comes with creating a business like this.
Mark, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, and that's the beauty of microfinance. Like, people borrow $50, $75. My shoes cost more than $50. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I do.
And it's like,
he knows.
You know.
I got 2 daughters.
That's the wrong thing to say. But what I'm trying to say is that, I'll go to the mall and I'll be like, oh, cute shoes. Okay, $50. Swipe, or, whatever it is, right? But then it's like, my shoes could potentially help somebody out of poverty.
And not just help somebody, but like
lots of people,
communities
exactly.
because of it.
That's amazing. That's the beauty of microfinance.
But see, but Bridget, that's encouraging, because I think what Mark is saying in his book, it's like there's still a lot more to do. However, in your book, there's a quote that says there's a new spirit emerging, that people will come on board if they believe a solution is significant, scalable, and what is it? Significant, scalable.
Gotta be an S.
And another S word. And I'm going to check that right in the book, because it was really powerful, as you can tell. Is significant, sustainable, and scalable, and they'll come on board.
That's
and is that what you're saying?
Exactly. And not only is that enterprise, the fish farmer and the chicken farmer, sustainable, but the business that he borrowed that loan from becomes sustainable. I mean, we take donations through Opportunity International, the organization I've worked with for 20 years. We take those donations, we put that in as equity in a bank. We then borrow money from the local government and World Bank and other sources, and we loan out that huge amount. Within about 3 or 4 years, that whole enterprise is sustainable.
Wow.
Because and these loan officers that are working with these poor people, their salaries are covered by the interest off of those loans, so that we don't have to keep fueling the same organization. We can expand it, we can go into new regions, but we don't need to keep
See, and that makes sense to me, Mark, versus sort of like what we say a handout,
Yeah.
it's a hand up,
Yes.
right? Because I
Yes.
think a lot of us are kind of tired of just throwing our money and going, well, what does it do? Well, we fed them for a day. Well, that doesn't do anything as far as sustainability. And I think this idea about microfinance and loans makes a lot of sense. It empowers them, you know, for work and to change, you know, their family and community.
Right.
And your book, as I said, is packed full of success stories of people who have received these microfinance loans. Where can people get a copy of your book, Mark?
Well, you can go on Amazon, or you can go on my website, UnPoverty.org, and you can buy the book on there. And if you buy it through our website, 100% of all the profits. There's no middle person. Everything goes to the poor. I mean, that's the way I've set it up. Is so
Did
that
you make up that word?
UnPoverty is a word made up. That's right. It's a caption. It's the idea that we do not have to live in a world where people are struggling on $1 a day.
And one of the best things throughout your book, there's so many women that have taken this finance and opportunity and run with it. I mean, that is incredible in itself, that they said that there's been a shift, that before loans were always given to the men.
Yes.
And they found that, generally speaking, men did not care for their family with those finances.
Yep.
But when you give that money and loan to a woman, a mother, she will first and foremost care for her children. Then she will care for other mothers in the community, and then she will then, you know, impact outside of that. Because a lot of these they aren't just like on their own. They actually like hire the women around them to make the baskets or whatnot.
And what happens is these women form a co-op. It's actually required. So say there's 25 women in a group. Each one has their own business, and each one has their own loan. But at the end of the 4-month period, now that the loans are everyone has to have paid off their loan. If any one of those 25 women has defaulted, nobody gets the next loan.
Wow.
And so
Accountability.
So, and they make weekly payments. So every week, if you come this week and your child has been sick, and so you've had to be at home and you couldn't be out in the market selling whatever widget you make, then the other members of your group will make your weekly payment, confident that you'll make good on it. And that's why there's 97% repayment in these kind of loans.
That's amazing.
That is
Thing of
amazing.
beauty. It is a thing of beauty.
It is.
And so it's like so simple, but yet so powerful.
Yeah.
You know, it's just, and it's that really reminds me of the gospel of Jesus Christ. You know, something it's very simple, but it's incredibly powerful. Yeah.
Well, you talk about Micah chapter 6, verse 8 in your book. What does God require of you? To do what is right, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God.
To do justice.
To do justly.
Yeah, if you sum all of life up into what does God expect of us, Micah 6:8, is to do justice. You start right there. And then Jesus comes and he takes the thing a step further and he says, if you love me, then you will show it by loving the least among us. And the amazing thing that I find is that here in the West, Canada, the US, we sometimes view the least among us are the poorest people in our country, but they are not. The least among us are half of humanity struggling on $2 a day, and they do not live in our countries. And they live in the developing world. And so Jesus is saying, if you really want to follow me, go to those people and bring about justice. So.
And justice in your book saying that everyone should have the means to basic needs.
Yeah, the minimum.
The minimum.
minimum.
And just basic needs to live is justice.
The opportunity.
Okay.
The opportunity to bring that about for themselves. Not a handout.
Right.
That's not justice.
What a great name for your mission. Opportunity
Yeah,
International.
international.
Yeah.
How old is Opportunity International?
40 years.
Oh, wow.
We'll be celebrating 40 years. And the editor cut the scene in the book, as editors are good at doing. But I talk about justice as if you flip a coin, and while the coin is spinning in the air, and you don't know how it's going to land, if it lands on heads, you're right here in Canada. If it lands on tails, you're in Haiti as a sugar plantation farmer. And you don't know which is going to land. So design the rules for the world, the economic rules, while the coin is spinning. And see, and I think if Jesus were here, he would say, set up a system that gives the poor a chance so that they can meet their own basic needs.
Yeah.
That's justice.
That's good.
Mark Lutz, thank you so much for being here. I told you you'd be inspired. I know we are all inspired as we've been reading your book. Again, it's entitled UnPoverty, Rich Lessons from the Working Poor. Mark's website is, one more time?
UnPoverty.org.
UnPoverty.org, or you can log on to our website at crossroads.ca for any contact information with any guest you see here on Full Circle or 100 Huntley Street throughout the week.